sort of strategy where foreign policy implications have you use economic tools to reach foreign policy goals,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's with respect to Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we know, Canada has sold millions of dollars of military equipment to Saudis, while we, criticize their human rights record. And for me, the answer is as we get more energy independent, as
Mm-hmm.
we rely less on a fossil fuel based economy, that will empower us to combat a nation like Saudi Arabia when it comes to human rights abuses. And so conversely, if we develop an economy that's not only that doesn't rely so much on fossil fuels, but that is also focused on domestic manufacturing, that will also economically unchain us from China,
Mm-hmm.
and then give us the moral and legitimate credibility
Yeah.
to do the sanctions, to do the criticisms that will actually have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. If our entire supply chain is contingent upon China showing us good favor, and if
Mm-hmm.
our entire manufacturing chain is based on China showing us favor, then yes, of course, any criticism of the Uyghur situation is going to fall on deaf ears, because we're
Mm-hmm.
like, what are you going to do about it? We have you economically, we have you by the balls.
Yeah.
But if our supply chain and our domestic and our manufacturing capacity is domestic based, then it's like now we're untethered. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? We don't have to worry so much about not upsetting the dragon, or insert metaphor here. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it does give you that freedom to sort of speak your mind.
Yeah.
But then, of course, as soon as I realize that, I do apply the scope of climate change,
Right.
and realizing that any path towards a sustainable world is going to involve uh, Indian, Chinese, and Russian cooperation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If it's just New Zealand, Denmark, and Iceland, we may as well do nothing. You know what I mean? So, like,
Right. Right.
it has to be a global approach with the largest, United States as well, Brazil as well, but you
Mm-hmm.
need the largest emitters
Mm-hmm.
at the table. So there is a bit of, I mean, I don't want to say bit, there's a very fine line that needs to be walked from our perspective in terms of developing a policy.
Yeah.
But in terms of the to-do list, or how do we actually get better at this? The first thing I can say is the more things we manufacture in-house, the
Yes.
more our supply chain is closed off.
Yeah.
Uh, you know what I mean? Then the stronger we'll be against the Belt and Road Initiative, or against their actions at the UN, or with their ethnic minority. So
Yeah.
I,
We are
I don't know
taking,
if
I
that.
mean, by us talking that way, by the way, you're talking that we're taking a stance that Donald Trump took, by the way. He didn't go through with it, but
Yeah,
he was talking about, uh the idea of like protectionism is the idea
yeah,
that you're bringing back, you're untethering sort of the global market of supply chain, of course. And I would say, for me, I think that's, if you're going to deal with the issues that are happening on a global scale, on a security scale,
yeah,
I think you're going to have to untether yourself from economically from some of the people who are creating those issues.
yeah,
Now, you also do create a vacuum there, and this is the other problem: is you do create a vacuum for other countries to step in when you don't. And so, how do you deal with the fact that China in many ways, what we've been by opening up our markets to China, which is what Bill Clinton did, basically. Um, you opened up China to the rest of the world, right? And China now owns parts of Africa. Literally, they have contracts where they own land for 100 years. This has been China's policy. They own land, they own ports. For example, in Sri Lanka, one of their ports is now owned by China, and
yeah,
they have to pay like tariffs, and it's not owned by their own country, and they can't do anything about it because they took
yeah,
debt from China, right? Which is the playbook that a lot of the European and American countries have done through the IMF and the World Bank. So China is just using the policy that was already there, just putting it on overdrive, basically.
yeah,
But that's what you created. You created a monster in many ways, and you're gonna have to bring it back in. You're gonna have to reel it back in. And to me, I think you're gonna have to accept that there's going to be a big hit somehow, but I think you're going to have to justify saying, I mean, are we going to justify the death of millions of people and be okay with that? Like, is that okay on our conscience as Canadians, as Americans? I don't know. For me, that to me is, I can't follow my conscience. I can't do it. No amount of cheap products is going to take the conscience away.
Exactly.
So that's where I agree with you.
Yeah, no, it's I really approach it from the perspective that it's almost perfect timing,
Yeah.
in that climate change presents such a time sensitive emergency
Mm-hmm.
where change is not an option, change is not up for debate. It is just something that we must do.
We must do. Yeah.
That is the economic, or not even that's just the existential fire that's been lit under my ass that
Mm-hmm.
says, hey, our entire playbook needs to change, not because I gave a speech about, or I wrote an essay in university, or it's not a theoretical thing. Like,
Yeah.
untethering ourselves from the current global supply chain isn't a nice idea. It
Yeah.
is an existential
Mm-hmm.
necessity. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so that fact fuels my policy making process, where it's like, okay, I'm not talking about it in the sense that I'm better than anyone in China, or it's about morality. It's like there's a time,
There's an imperative to this. It's very
yeah, there's a
imperative
real
that we do
imperative.
this. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think the fact that the imperative is one thing, but then it's like, oh, it also has the dual benefit of being
Mm.
morally righteous
Mm-hmm.
and being economically sustainable for your
Mm.
country. You know
Right.
what I mean? So when I think of a world where everything you buy on Walmart, on Amazon, or Best Buy, there's going to be less of it because people will be focused on domestic manufacturing for critical infrastructure. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the one thing we can all agree on, that we've seen, is we need more vaccine production and less Best Buys. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
the way we've been doing it. Like, it's not to our benefit. Like, it's so globalized, it's so intertwined, but then it's just like, do the critical ingredients that our essential workers use to keep this economy, keep the lights on, are we making sure that that's in house?
Right.
Are we making sure that the standards, because, like, and I'm sure you would agree, but when you heard about fake N95 masks,
Mm.
and imagine a nurse or a doctor putting that on, and then they infect someone because the quality isn't that good, and that
Yeah.
leads to a super spreader event. Like, that's real lives are on the
That's real
line,
lives on the line. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's something that we can address with domestic manufacturing,
Yeah.
something that has 95% approval rating in the polls, something
Yeah.
that's good for our economy, something that's good for our environment, and
Yeah.
it's good morally.
Yeah.
So, as far as I'm concerned, it's you and I can discuss it, but it really has to happen now.
Yeah.
And I suspect that, in the same breath that the creation of ISIS was a ripple effect of the invasion of Iraq, if we were to take real foundational change now to
Mm.
untether ourselves, have domestic manufacturing, and sell countries ambulances and not bombs, I think you would see the ripple effect would be the opposite of warfare, the opposite of chaos. Because what you said is true. When we drop a crate full of M16s to the Free Syrian Army, we're not
Mm-hmm.
we're not asking for receipts.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, how many end up on the black market? How
Yeah.
many end up actually being shot at us? How many this? How many that? Whatever. So it's like, we've created this economy, and it's like, well, the military-industrial complex is benefiting from it, and that's the powers that be. Like, that's cool, but, like, there's an asteroid coming, and it's called climate change, and if we
Mm-hmm.
don't adjust our, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Now, like, it doesn't matter what you
Who?
own,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're we're all out of luck. So
Yeah.
it really is, there's an imperative, and it's perfect timing, because there's a multiple ripple effects that are in the positive. I think.
I agree. Absolutely. I think you bring up a great point, and I think we can end it off there. But I think